Don't sign. Your son is setting you up. Marcus Chen whispered desperately, grabbing my trembling hand just seconds before I would have signed my own death warrant. I froze completely, staring at this stranger who had just shattered everything I thought I knew about my own son. At 69 years old, I never imagined the boy I raised with integrity and love had spent 3 months orchestrating an elaborate scheme to frame me for his $3.7 million fraud. What Marcus revealed next about those backdated documents would shock everyone who heard it. My own son had forged my signature 18 months ago, making me retroactively responsible for crimes I never knew existed. Stay with me until the end, because this story will leave you stunned by how a father's unconditional love nearly destroyed him, and how a stranger's conscience became his salvation. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. Now let's get into this incredible story of betrayal, redemption, and the family we choose. The grandfather clock in my study chimed 9 times each note, floating through the Oak Park house I'd called home for 37 years. At 69, Benjamin Mitchell had developed routines as precise as the bridges he'd once designed. Earl Grey tea at 8:30, the latest Bridge Engineering Quarterly, spread across his lap, and Linda's photograph catching the lamplight just right on the mahogany side table. 5 years since cancer took her, but he still set out 2 coasters every evening. The doorbell shattered that February quietude with the urgency of bad news. Benjamin glanced at his Timex 9:15 p.m. The Hendersons next door knew better than to disturb him after 9. The Postal Service had long finished their rounds. He set aside the journal article about suspension cable innovations, his joints protesting as he rose from the leather chair that had molded to his frame over decades. Through the peephole, Nathan stood under the porch light, and Benjamin's heart simultaneously lifted and sank. His son hadn't visited in 8 months, not since the awkward Thanksgiving dinner, where Nathan had spent more time on phone calls than carving turkey. But something was wrong. Nathan's usually immaculate suit hung wrinkled. His jaw showed 2 days of stubble, and his shoulders carried a weight that made him look older than his 43 years. "Dad!" Nathan's voice cracked when Benjamin opened the door. "I'm sorry to come so late." The February wind followed Nathan inside, carrying the scent of expensive cologne, mixed with something else, desperation, perhaps. Benjamin noticed the Rolex glinting on his son's wrist, the same watch Nathan had shown off last Christmas, claiming it was a necessary investment in image. "Son, you look terrible. Come in, sit down." Nathan collapsed onto the living room sofa as if his strings had been cut. Benjamin moved to the kitchen, filling the kettle by muscle memory, while his mind cataloged the inconsistencies. The Rolex, the Tesla in the driveway, the latest model he'd noticed, the Italian leather shoes that probably cost more than Benjamin's monthly pension. How did these pieces fit with the haunted look in Nathan's eyes? "Dad, I'm in trouble." Nathan's words tumbled out when Benjamin returned with tea. Real trouble. The kind that destroys everything. Benjamin settled into his chair engineer's mind, automatically shifting into problem-solving mode. "Tell me everything. $3.7 million. Nathan's hand shook as he lifted the cup. "That's what I owe. The investors are pulling out. The FBI is investigating wire fraud allegations. Dad, they're going to destroy me." The number hit Benjamin like a physical blow, but his analytical mind kept working. The Tesla outside was worth at least $90,000. The Rolex, another $40,000. Nathan's Oakbrook house had to be worth $2 million. The math didn't add up to complete destruction. How did this happen? Nathan. Bad investments. Trusting the wrong people. The market turned. Nathan's explanations came too quick, too rehearsed. "Dad, you taught me that family comes first. That we take care of each other." "Of course we do." Benjamin reached across to squeeze his son's shoulder, feeling the expensive fabric of the suit, noting the French cuffs with gold links. "We'll figure this out together." "I knew you'd say that." Nathan's relief seemed theatrical, excessive. "Dad, I need you at my office tomorrow morning, 8 sharp. Can you do that?" "Tomorrow's Saturday." "I know, but my legal team has found a solution. A way to restructure everything, but I need you there. Bring your driver's license, social security card, for verification purposes." A faint alarm rang in Benjamin's engineering mind, the same instinct that had once detected a hairline fracture in a bridge support before it became critical. But this was Nathan, the boy he'd taught to ride a bike, who'd won the science fair with a bridge made of popsicle sticks, who'd cried in his arms when Linda died. "Of course I'll be there." Nathan stood abruptly, setting down the barely touched tea. "Thank you, Dad. You don't know what this means." He moved toward the door with suspicious haste. "A car will pick you up at 7:30. Don't eat breakfast. We'll have it catered." Benjamin followed him to the door, questions forming, but Nathan was already at his Tesla, the engine purring to life with electric silence. As the red taillights disappeared into the winter darkness, Benjamin stood in his doorway, cold air raising goosebumps on his arms. Something was wrong. Every instinct developed over 4 decades of engineering precision screamed it. But stronger than instinct was love, and love had its own logic that defied calculation. 6:30 a.m. came without sleep. Benjamin Mitchell sat at his kitchen table, staring at a photograph from Nathan's 7th-grade science fair father and son grinning beside a popsicle stick bridge that had won first place. "Built to last," young Nathan had told the judges, "just like my dad taught me." Where had that earnest boy gone? The coffee maker gurgled, but Benjamin couldn't stomach food. His engineering mind had spent the night running calculations that refused to balance. The Tesla, the Rolex, the Oakbrook House assets that suggested solvency, not desperation. He'd tried calling Thomas Hartford at midnight, forgetting his old friend was arguing a case in Seattle. Margaret, his ex-wife, hadn't answered either, though they'd remained friendly since their divorce 15 years ago. At 7 sharp, his phone rang. Nathan's name appeared exactly 30 minutes before the promised pickup. "Dad, you ready?" Nathan's voice carried an artificial brightness like an actor who'd over-rehearsed his lines. "I tried reaching Thomas last night. Maybe we should get legal advice before—" "There's no time, Dad. The federal deadline is Monday. Miss it and everything collapses." The words tumbled out, fast practiced. "The car will be there in 30 minutes. Don't forget your documents." "Nathan, I've been thinking. Your assets alone could—" "Please, Dad, trust me. Haven't I always made you proud?" The question hung between them, weighted with years of report cards, business launches, magazine covers featuring Chicago's tech innovator under 40. Pride had always been Benjamin's weakness where Nathan was concerned. "I'll be ready." Benjamin dressed carefully khakis blue Oxford shirt, the navy blazer Linda had bought him for their last anniversary. His hands trembled slightly as he gathered his driver's license, social security card, and passport. Why would Nathan need all 3? He tucked them into his inner pocket, the documents feeling heavier than their weight suggested. At 7:30 precisely, a black Lincoln Town car pulled into his driveway. Not the Uber or Lyft Benjamin had expected. The driver emerged young professional with the bearing of ex-military. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm Timothy. Mr. Chen sent me." "Mr. Chen?" Benjamin paused at his front door. "I thought Nathan arranged this." "Mr. Chen handles transportation for important clients." Timothy's response felt rehearsed, another line in a script Benjamin hadn't been given. The car's interior smelled of leather and subtle cologne, the kind of luxury service Benjamin had never used in 40 years of engineering work. Timothy drove with precision, taking Lakeshore Drive instead of the Kennedy Expressway, longer but more scenic, as if this journey needed to feel special, memorable. "Have you driven Nathan before?" Benjamin attempted conversation. "I couldn't say, sir." Timothy's eyes never left the road. "This seems elaborate for a Saturday morning meeting." "Mr. Chen believes in doing things properly, sir?" Mr. Chen again. Benjamin pulled out his phone, typing a text to Thomas. "Something feels orchestrated. At Nathan's office soon. Please call when you can." The message showed delivered but not read. Seattle was 2 hours behind. Thomas would still be asleep. Chicago's skyline grew larger through the tinted windows, glass and steel monuments, to ambition that had consumed so many, including apparently his son. The car turned onto South LaSalle Street, pulling up to a 42-story tower that gleamed despite the overcast February morning. 42nd floor, Mr. Mitchell. They're expecting you." The lobby was nearly empty, unusual for a building this size, but it was Saturday. A security guard looked up from his desk, already holding a visitor badge, with Benjamin's name printed in neat letters. "No need to sign in, Mr. Mitchell. Express elevator to your left." How had they known exactly when he'd arrive? The badge showed a timestamp of 8 a.m., though his watch read 7:58. Someone had planned this down to the minute. The elevator was modern, all glass and chrome, ascending smoothly while displaying the climbing floor numbers in red digits. Benjamin watched the city shrink below, feeling increasingly like a small component in a machine he didn't understand. His phone buzzed a text from Margaret. "Sorry missed your call. Everything okay?" He started to type a response, but the elevator chimed. 42nd floor. The doors slid open with mechanical precision. The reception area was all marble and mahogany with Quantum Financial Solutions etched in gold letters. Through glass walls, Benjamin could see a conference room where 3 figures waited, Nathan pacing with nervous energy, a blonde woman in a severe black suit organizing documents, and an Asian man in his late 30s who stood apart staring out at the city below. Nathan looked up his face, breaking into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Dad, perfect timing. Come in, come in. Let's solve this problem together." The conference room door was already open, waiting to swallow him whole. The conference room smelled of fresh coffee and legal documents, a combination that immediately set Benjamin's nerves on edge. Nathan crossed the space in 3 quick strides, embracing his father with an enthusiasm that felt performed. "Dad, you're our savior." Nathan's smile stretched too wide, like a salesman closing a deal he knew was rotten. "Let me introduce everyone. This is Victoria Sterling, our legal counsel." The blonde woman extended a manicured hand, her grip firm but cold. "Mr. Mitchell, your son speaks highly of you." Her voice carried the practiced neutrality of someone who lied professionally. "And this is Marcus Chen, our CFO." The Asian man turned from the window reluctantly, and Benjamin caught something in his expression, a flicker of what looked like guilt, before professional courtesy took over. His handshake was brief, his palm damp with perspiration despite the room's cool temperature. "Mr. Mitchell?" Marcus's voice barely rose above a whisper. He immediately returned his attention to his phone, thumbs moving in nervous patterns across the screen. "Please, Dad, sit here." Nathan guided Benjamin to a leather chair positioned precisely before a stack of documents. Multiple colored tabs jutting from the pages like warning flags. "Coffee, we have that Colombian blend you like." "I'm fine." Benjamin's engineering mind cataloged the scene documents. Pre-positioned pen placed at exact signing angle, witnesses present. This wasn't a meeting. It was a closing. "Let's get straight to business, then." Victoria Sterling smoothly took control, her fingers dancing across the papers. "What we have here is a simple corporate restructuring. Transfer of shares for tax optimization. Standard practice in family businesses." Benjamin reached for the documents, his reading glasses catching the morning light. The letterhead read, "Quantum Financial Solutions," but the date made him pause. "These are dated 18 months ago." "Backdating for tax purposes," Victoria responded without missing a beat. "Perfectly legal when done within family structures." Nathan leaned forward, his cologne overwhelming in its intensity. "Dad, this protects both of us. The family assets stay in the family just under better structure." Benjamin's finger traced down the page, legal jargon swimming before his eyes. Terms like personal guarantee and fiduciary responsibility jumped out, but their context remained murky. His engineering contracts had never looked like this. Those had been clear, precise, measurable. This felt like quicksand disguised as solid ground. "I should have Thomas look at—" "Dad." Nathan's hand covered his father's, warm and familiar, yet somehow foreign. "There's no time. The federal filing deadline is Monday morning. Miss it and I lose everything. We lose everything." Marcus Chen shifted by the window, his reflection in the glass, showing a man at war with himself. He kept checking his phone, glancing at the door, his entire body radiating discomfort. Benjamin picked up the Mont Blanc pen, another excessive detail in this orchestrated morning. The weight felt significant final. He thought of young Nathan at that science fair, proud of his bridge, talking about trust and structural integrity. That boy would have understood that rushing critical decisions led to collapse. "Mr. Mitchell?" Victoria's voice carried subtle urgency. "I have another meeting at 8:30. If we could proceed." The pen hovered over the signature line. Benjamin looked at his son, searching for the boy he'd raised in the man's desperate eyes. Nathan's smile never wavered, but a bead of sweat traced down his temple. A sharp knock interrupted the moment. A young woman peered through the glass door, her expression urgent. "Mr. Mitchell, you're needed immediately. The Michigan Avenue situation." Nathan's composure cracked slightly. "Can't it wait 5 minutes?" "They said no, sir. The FBI liaison is on the line." FBI. The word hung in the air like a smoke signal. Nathan stood his movement too quick, too eager to leave. "Dad, just review everything. I'll be right back." He squeezed Benjamin's shoulder. 5 minutes maximum." Victoria Sterling gathered her phone and tablet. "I should assist with this. Regulatory matters are my specialty." She followed Nathan out her heels, clicking against the marble floor in rapid staccato. The door closed with a soft, pneumatic hiss, leaving Benjamin alone with Marcus Chen. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Marcus moved from the window, his face cycling through emotions. Fear, determination, fear again. Then, with sudden decisive movement, Marcus crossed the room and grabbed Benjamin's wrist, his grip desperate and trembling. "Don't sign. Your son is setting you up." The words hung in the air like a fire alarm. Benjamin stared at Marcus Chen's trembling hand, still gripping his wrist, trying to process the impossible. What are you talking about? There's no time to explain everything. Marcus glanced at the door, sweat beading on his forehead. The FBI has been investigating Nathan's company for 6 months. Wire fraud money, laundering securities violations. He needs someone to take the fall, and these documents. Marcus jabbed at the papers with his free hand. They make you the CEO retroactively. Every crime becomes yours the moment you sign. Benjamin's engineering mind rejected the information like a faulty calculation. That's impossible. He's my son. Look at page 17. Marcus flipped through the documents with practiced efficiency. See that signature. It's already there. Forged. Dating back to when the illegal transfers started. You sign the first page, and you're validating everything that comes after. The room seemed to tilt. Benjamin grabbed the conference table for support, his 69-year-old legs suddenly unreliable. Through the glass walls, he could see Victoria Sterling in the hallway, her phone pressed to her ear, gesturing animatedly. Why are you telling me this? Marcus's composure cracked entirely. Because I have a daughter, Emma. She's 8 years old, and every night she asks me about my day at work. What am I supposed to tell her? That I helped destroy an innocent grandfather? His voice broke. I've been wrestling with this for 2 weeks, ever since Nathan showed me the plan. 2 weeks? Benjamin's hand shook as he pulled out his phone. He's been planning this for 2 weeks. Longer. 3 months, at least. Ever since the FBI raid on the Michigan Avenue property. Marcus grabbed Benjamin's shoulder. You need to photograph everything. Evidence. Quick before they come back. Benjamin's fingers fumbled with his phone camera muscle memory from 40 years of documenting engineering projects taking over. Click. The first page with its signature line. Click. Page 17 with the forged signature. Click. 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 His hand steadied as he found his rhythm, the camera capturing page after page of elaborate deception. Page 32. Marcus directed, flipping ahead. That's where you become liable for the $3.7 million. Page 45 transfers the offshore accounts to your name. Accounts you never knew existed. 47 photographs in total. Each image another nail in the coffin Nathan had built for his father. The phone felt hot in Benjamin's hands, weighted with evidence of a betrayal beyond comprehension. Victoria Sterling turned toward the conference room, ending her call. Service stairs, Marcus hissed, pulling Benjamin toward a door marked emergency exit only. They'll lock down the elevators once they realize you're gone. The stairwell was industrial gray concrete, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Marcus led the way, taking steps 2 at a time despite his dress shoes. Benjamin followed his knees, protesting immediately. 23 floors, Marcus called back. Can you make it? I designed bridges for 40 years. Benjamin gasped, gripping the metal railing. I'll make it. Floor 40. Floor 38. Each landing brought burning in his legs, fire in his lungs. Behind them, a door slammed somewhere above Nathan, returning to find an empty conference room. My Emma, Marcus said between breaths. She made me a Father's Day card last year. World's most honest daddy, it said. How could I face her if I let this happen? Floor 30. Benjamin's shirt was soaked through his heart, hammering rhythms that would terrify his cardiologist. But stronger than physical pain was the emotional weight. Nathan had looked him in the eyes and smiled, while preparing his destruction. Floor 20. Marcus's phone rang. He silenced it without looking. That'll be Nathan. He knows you're gone. Floor 15. Benjamin's phone buzzed. Then again, the calls were starting. Don't answer, Marcus warned. No matter what he says, don't answer. He'll try everything, guilt, threats, manipulation. He's desperate now, and desperate people are dangerous. Floor 10. Benjamin's legs moved on autopilot, his mind processing the morning's events. The orchestrated pickup, the pre-positioned documents, Victoria Sterling's convenient interruption. Even the coffee comment Nathan didn't know his father's coffee preferences anymore. Floor 5. So close to street level, to freedom, to safety. After this, Benjamin ponted, what happens to you? Marcus paused at the 3rd floor landing. I'll go back up. Pretend I was in the bathroom. Buy you time to get away. He pulled out a business card, pressing it into Benjamin's palm. My personal cell's on the back. When this goes to trial, and it will, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. The ground floor door appeared like salvation. Marcus checked his phone. 8:17. Nathan's called me 3 times already. He gripped Benjamin's shoulder one final time. There's a taxi stand on State Street, half a block north. Get to a lawyer. Today. Now. Benjamin pushed through the door into Chicago's February morning. The cold air hit his sweat-soaked shirt like an electric shock, but it also felt like freedom. Behind him, 23 floors up, his son was discovering that his carefully orchestrated trap had failed. His phone rang. Nathan calling. The first of what would become many. Benjamin declined the call and hailed a cab, Marcus Chen's business card clutched in his trembling hand like a lifeline. Thomas Hartford's law office occupied the third floor of a vintage Chicago building, all exposed brick and original hardwood, a stark contrast to Nathan's glass tower. Benjamin sat across from his friend of 45 years, the evidence photos glowing on Thomas's computer screen, while his phone buzzed relentlessly on the desk between them. Call number 22. Ben, if you had signed these, Thomas removed his reading glasses, rubbing his eyes as if trying to erase what he'd seen. 15 to 20 years. Federal prison. At your age, that's a death sentence. He's my son Tom. The words came out broken, each syllable fighting through disbelief. No. Thomas's voice carried the weight of his 30 years as a judge before retirement. Your son was that boy who won the science fair. This person, he gestured at the documents. This is a criminal who happens to share your DNA. Call 23. The phone screen lit up with Nathan's photo from last Christmas. Everyone smiling around the dinner table. Benjamin had taken that photo, proud of the family gathered together. The irony tasted bitter. The sophistication here is staggering. Thomas continued scrolling through the images. Backdated contracts, forged signatures going back 18 months, corporate structures, designed to make you appear as the architect of everything. This took months of planning, Ben. Months where he looked you in the eye at family dinners and planned your destruction. Call 24. 25. Benjamin's phone rang differently this time. Margaret's ringtone, the opening notes of their wedding song from 47 years ago. He answered immediately. Ben, thank God. His ex-wife's voice carried urgency. I've been trying to reach you since I saw your text. Nathan's been calling me frantic. What's happening? He tried to frame me, Maggie, for federal crimes. The silence stretched across the connection before Margaret spoke again, her voice smaller. I tried to warn you. 3 months ago, remember, at coffee, I told you something had changed in him. The way he talked about money, about success, about you being stuck in the past. You didn't want to hear it. Benjamin remembered now, dismissed it as typical mother's worry, former wife's negativity. He'd defended Nathan, made excuses. The boy was stressed. Building a business was hard. Margaret didn't understand the pressure. Call 28 interrupted his thoughts. Where are you now? Margaret asked. Tom Hartford's office. He's reviewing everything. Ben. Margaret paused, and he could picture her choosing words carefully, a habit from their marriage. I hired a private investigator 2 months ago. I know that sounds extreme, but I was worried. Nathan's been moving money offshore since October. Millions, Ben. Money that came from somewhere illegal. Call 30, 31. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me your son could do no wrong in your eyes? Even now, even after this part of you still loves him. She was right. Beneath the shock and betrayal, that 7-year-old boy with the popsicle stick bridge still lived in Benjamin's heart. Call 33. I need to go home, Benjamin said suddenly. I need to get some things, think about what comes next. Don't go alone, Thomas warned. Take my driver. Better yet, stay here. But Benjamin was already moving, exhaustion replaced by a need to see his house, his life before everything changed. Call 35 as they entered the cab Thomas had summoned. The ride to Oak Park took 40 minutes through Saturday afternoon traffic. By the time the taxi turned onto his street, the call counter had reached 37. Then abruptly, the calls stopped. Nathan's Tesla sat in Benjamin's driveway like a predator waiting for prey. Sir, should I wait? The cab driver had noticed Benjamin's hesitation. No, this is something I need to face. 3 cigarette butts lay crushed near Nathan's driver door. He'd quit smoking 5 years ago, proudly announcing it at Thanksgiving. Stress had brought the habit back, apparently. Benjamin approached slowly, his 69-year-old body, feeling every year, every disappointment, every betrayal. Nathan emerged from the Tesla as Benjamin reached his front door. His son looked destroyed, shirt untucked, hair disheveled, eyes wild with desperation. Dad, finally. Why weren't you answering? Where did you go? I know what you tried to do, Nathan. The words hung in the February air between them. Nathan's face cycled through emotions, surprise, calculation, attempt at confusion. Then finally, when he saw his father's expression, the mask dropped entirely. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The FBI is destroying everything I built. Everything. So you decided to destroy me instead. You're old? Nathan's composure shattered completely. You're 69. What's 10 or 15 years to you? I'm 43. I have my whole life ahead of me. Benjamin stared at this stranger wearing his son's face. I'm your father. I changed your diapers, taught you to ride a bike, paid for your education. And I was grateful. But gratitude doesn't pay for lawyers. Gratitude doesn't stop federal investigations. You lived your simple little life, your precious integrity, your engineering ethics, while I built something real, something that mattered, something built on fraud, something built on success. Nathan slammed his fist onto the Tesla's hood, leaving a small dent in the aluminum. But you wouldn't understand that. You spent 40 years building bridges for a government salary while I made millions, and when I really needed you ran. You tried to send me to federal prison. I tried to save my life, and you chose yourself over your son. The accusation was so twisted, so inverted from reality, that Benjamin almost laughed. Instead, he felt something die inside him, the last thread connecting him to the boy, with the popsicle stick bridge. You're not my son anymore. Nathan's face went white, then red. Fine. You know what? You were never really my father anyway. A father would have understood. A father would have helped. You're not my dad anymore. His voice turned cold, surgical. To me, you're just Wilfred now. Not Dad. Wilfred. A name on old engineering documents nobody cares about. Nathan climbed into his Tesla, the electric engine silently mocking the screaming tension. He reversed out of the driveway with unnecessary speed, leaving black marks on the concrete Benjamin had sealed himself 2 summers ago. The last image was Nathan's face through the windshield, twisted with rage and something else. Fear, perhaps, or maybe just the realization that bridges once burned couldn't be rebuilt. Benjamin stood alone in his driveway, the February wind cutting through his sweat-soaked shirt, 37 missed calls on his phone, 0 sons in his life. The math was simple, brutal, and final. May 15th arrived with unseasonable warmth, as if Chicago itself wanted to spotlight the Federal Courthouse drama. Benjamin Mitchell stood at the courthouse steps, watching news vans position themselves like vultures around carrion. Father betrayed by son scrolled across one screen. Tech CEO's family fraud decorated another. 3 months since that February morning, when Marcus Chen saved his life with 8 desperate words. Thomas Hartford guided Benjamin through the media gauntlet, his former judge status, creating a protective bubble reporters wouldn't breach. Remember Ben, you're not on trial here. Nathan is. The courtroom was smaller than Benjamin had expected, functional federal minimalism rather than Hollywood grandeur. Gallery seats filled with strangers hungry for scandal, journalists with notebooks poised, and in the back row, Margaret wearing the navy dress she'd worn to Nathan's college graduation. Nathan entered an orange jumpsuit, and shackles the sound of chains against linoleum, replacing his confident stride. No Rolex now, no Italian shoes, just federal prison issue and hollow eyes. He'd lost weight, his face gaunt, where it had been prosperous. He didn't look at Benjamin, focusing instead on the defense table, where his new court-appointed attorney shuffled papers Victoria Sterling had withdrawn from representation, claiming conflict of interest. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison. The judge was 70-ish, with eyes that had seen every variation of human failure. She reviewed the charges with clinical precision: wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy to commit fraud, securities violations, attempted fraud against a family member, falsification of federal documents, identity theft. Each count carried years that would stack like floors in Nathan's glass tower. Marcus Chen took the witness stand first, wearing the same nervous expression from that February morning, but now tempered with resolve. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Sarah Kim, walked him through the timeline. Mr. Chen, when did you become aware of the defendant's plan to frame his father? January 23rd. Nathan showed me the documents he was preparing. He said his father was old, at a few years in prison. Wouldn't matter to someone who'd already lived their life. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Benjamin felt Margaret's hand briefly touch his shoulder from the row behind. What was your response? I told him it was wrong. Criminal. He laughed and said I didn't understand how business worked at the highest levels. Marcus's voice strengthened. I have an 8-year-old daughter, Ms. Kim. That morning she'd given me a drawing she'd made of our family. I kept thinking, what if someone did this to me? What would happen to Emma? So you warned Mr. Mitchell? I grabbed his hand and told him the truth, that his son was setting him up. Then I helped him escape with photographic evidence. Marcus looked directly at Nathan for the first time. I couldn't let an innocent man go to prison for crimes he didn't commit. The defense's cross-examination tried painting Marcus as a disgruntled employee, a jealous partner, but his consistency never wavered. The emails he'd preserved, the recorded conversations he'd secretly made after January, everything supported his testimony. Then came the trial's shocking pivot. The prosecution calls Victoria Sterling. Nathan's head snapped up, genuine surprise, cracking his practiced courtroom composure. Victoria entered in a conservative black suit. her blonde hair pulled back severely, avoiding Nathan's stare with surgical precision. "Ms. Sterling, you've accepted an immunity agreement in exchange for testimony, correct?" "Yes." "Please tell the court about the document preparation." Victoria's testimony was devastating in its precision. She detailed meetings where Nathan had explicitly discussed making his father the fall guy, showed bank records of transfers to accounts opened in Benjamin's name, without his knowledge, presented emails where Nathan had joked about his father's engineering brain being too simple to understand what was happening until it was too late. He said blood was thicker than water, but money was thicker than blood. Victoria testified, her voice emotionless. He said his father had lived a full life already, that sacrificing a few years was a small price for family loyalty. Benjamin watched his son shrink with each revelation, the confident CEO dissolving into someone small and desperate. When Benjamin finally took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. Sarah Kim's questions were gentle but thorough. "Mr. Mitchell, how would you describe your relationship with your son before February?" "I loved him. I was proud of him. I thought I'd raised him with values. Integrity, honesty, building things that last." Benjamin's voice remained steady despite the pain. "I was wrong. He didn't just try to steal my freedom." Benjamin continued looking at the judge, rather than Nathan. "He tried to steal my faith in everything I'd taught him, everything I believed about family. That's a theft no prison sentence can restore." The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Benjamin spent them in the hallway with Thomas and Margaret drinking courthouse coffee that tasted like liquid resignation. "Guilty on all counts." Judge Morrison's sentence was methodical. 15 years federal prison, no possibility of parole. $5 million in fines and restitution. "Mr. Mitchell." "Nathan." "Mitchell, you violated the most sacred trust that exists, that between parent and child. This court has seen many criminals, but few as calculating as you." As the bailiffs prepared to lead Nathan away, I finally looked at Benjamin. His mouth formed the words, "I'm sorry," but no sound emerged. Benjamin turned away, denying his son even the acknowledgement of witnessed regret. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions Benjamin didn't answer. The sun was still shining, the May warmth still unseasonable, but Benjamin felt only winter. June arrived with boxes and bubble wrap, transforming Benjamin Mitchell's Oak Park home into a warehouse of memories being sorted for either keeping or discarding. 40 years of life in these rooms, and now each item demanded a decision, Madison or donation future or past. Benjamin stood in Nathan's childhood room, unchanged since high school, despite his son's requests to convert it to a guest room. Baseball trophies gathered dust on shelves he'd built himself. Science fair ribbons hung from a corkboard, including the famous Bridge Project first place 7th grade. He took that single ribbon, leaving the rest for goodwill. Some memories deserved preservation, even if the person who created them no longer existed. "You can't pack alone," Margaret announced from the doorway, carrying coffee and determination. His ex-wife had arrived uninvited, but welcome, wearing jeans and work gloves. 47 years of marriage and divorce means I get to help you leave this place." They worked in companionable silence, at first the rhythm of packing tape and newspaper creating its own meditation. Margaret handled Linda's things, the second wife's belongings, that Benjamin couldn't quite touch. She'd been gone 5 years, but her reading glasses still sat on the kitchen windowsill, waiting for eyes that would never need them again. "We both lost our son," Margaret said suddenly, wrapping a picture frame with excessive care. "The Nathan we raised, the one who cared about integrity and family, he died years ago. That man in prison is someone else wearing our son's face." Benjamin found himself in the basement, staring at his workbench, where he and 7-year-old Nathan had built that popsicle stick bridge. The same workspace where teenage Nathan had stopped visiting, too busy with friends, then college, then his career. When had the distance started? Was there a moment he could have prevented this trajectory? The doorbell interrupted his spiral. Marcus Chen stood on the porch, looking healthier than he had in months. Gone was the nervous energy from Quantum Financial Solutions, replaced by something calmer. "Mr. Mitchell, I wanted to say goodbye properly." Marcus carried a bottle of wine and an envelope. "And to thank you. Thank me. You saved my life. You saved my conscience. After testifying I couldn't stay in that world, I've taken a position with a nonprofit in Minneapolis, financial consulting for small businesses. Real help for real people." Marcus handed over the envelope. "Emma made this for you." Inside was a child's drawing, 2 stick figures, labeled Mr. Mitchell and Emma's daddy, standing in front of a rainbow. Below, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, "Thank you for helping my daddy be brave." Benjamin had to turn away ostensibly to pack another box, but really to compose himself. This drawing would definitely make the move to Madison. The corporate world already forgot about Nathan, Marcus continued. New scandals, new criminals. But Emma asks about you, calls you Grandpa Benjamin, even though I've explained you're not actually related. Family isn't just blood, Benjamin heard himself say, remembering Nathan's words about blood and money. Sometimes the family we choose is more real than the one we're born into. The packing continued through the afternoon. Neighbors stopped by with mixed reactions. The Hendersons from across the street offered casseroles and sympathy. The Johnsons whispered behind hands, their judgment clear. How had Benjamin not known? The church sent a card signed by the congregation, prayers for healing and forgiveness, though Benjamin wasn't sure he had any forgiveness left to give. In the kitchen, Benjamin found a ceramic mug decorated with child's handwriting, "World's Best Dad," in uneven blue letters. Nathan had made it in third grade art class proud of his creation, despite the teacher's note that he'd used too much glaze. Benjamin stood holding it, this artifact, from a different timeline where fathers and sons remained connected. He walked to the garbage can, lifted the lid, and dropped the mug inside. The ceramic thunked against yesterday's coffee grounds. Then he stood there staring at it, nestled among eggshells and junk mail. This was right. This was necessary. This was... His hands moved without conscious thought, retrieving the mug, washing it carefully, wrapping it in 3 layers of bubble wrap. Not everything could be discarded. Some pain needed preservation, if only to prove it had once been love. "You're allowed to mourn him," Margaret said softly, having watched the entire internal battle. "The son you lost, not the man he became. Grief doesn't follow legal verdicts." By evening, the moving truck was loaded. Furniture to Madison, memories to storage, donations to charity. The house stood empty, echoing with absence. Benjamin walked through each room one final time, his footsteps hollow on bare floors. In Nathan's room, rectangles of unfaded paint marked where posters had hung. In the kitchen, Linda's glasses were packed away. In the garage, oil stains from Nathan's first car remained on concrete. The moving truck pulled away as the sun set, taking Benjamin Mitchell away from Oak Park forever. In the passenger seat of his own car, 3 things rode with him to Wisconsin. Marcus's business card, Emma's drawing, and wrapped in excessive bubble wrap, a mug claiming he was the world's best dad, a title that despite everything he had tried to be. August morning light painted Lake Mendota gold, the water calm as glass reflecting clouds that drifted like thoughts through Wisconsin sky. Benjamin Mitchell, now 70 and 2 months removed from Chicago's chaos, sat on his cottage deck with coffee that actually tasted good, a small miracle after months of courthouse bitterness. "Ready for our walk, Sam?" The golden retriever lifted his head from his favorite spot tail, creating its own weather system of joy. Sam, the shelter had called him Senior Dog, 247, had been waiting 3 years for adoption when Benjamin found him, or perhaps when they found each other. 2 old souls deemed past their prime, discovering they had plenty of life left to live. The Madison Humane Society volunteer had been honest. "He's 8, has arthritis, and doesn't fetch anymore." Benjamin had responded, "I'm 70, have bad knees, and never liked throwing things anyway." They'd both laughed, and Sam had chosen that moment to rest his gray-muzzled head against Benjamin's legs, sealing the deal. Their morning route never varied down to the lake shore along the walking path, where other retirees nodded in recognition past the coffee shop, where the owner knew to have a dog biscuit ready. Simple routines that felt like healing. The cottage itself was modest. 2 bedrooms, one converted to a study, where engineering journals had been replaced by detective novels and woodworking magazines. Benjamin had started building birdhouses, teaching himself from YouTube videos, finding peace and creating things that provided shelter. Mail arrived mid-morning. Between bills and advertisements, Marcus Chen's familiar handwriting stood out. Benjamin opened it on the deck while Sam supervised, always interested in anything that occupied his human's attention. Mr. Mitchell business is thriving here in Minneapolis. Helped 3 small companies restructure their debt last month, legally, ethically, the right way. Emma starts 3rd grade next week. She insists you're her honorary grandfather and demands I invite you for Thanksgiving. She's also convinced Sam needs a friend and has been researching rescue dogs for Grandpa Benjamin. Margaret called last week. She says you're finding peace. I'm glad. What happened in February doesn't define you. 40 years of building bridges that still stand that defines you. Nathan's choices were his own. Your choice to maintain integrity, despite losing everything else. That's the kind of strength I want Emma to understand. Thank you for showing me that doing right isn't always easy, but is always necessary. Your friend Emma insists I write your family. Marcus. Benjamin folded the letter, carefully adding it to the growing collection in his desk drawer. These letters from Marcus, from Margaret, from Thomas Hartford, were becoming their own form of bridge connecting him to a world that still contained goodness. The photo album on his coffee table held an evolution. Page 1 still showed Nathan at 7 with his popsicle stick bridge, because that boy had existed, had been real, had been loved. But the later pages showed new images. Sam's adoption day, Marcus and Emma visiting in July, Margaret laughing at Benjamin's first lopsided birdhouse attempt, Thomas Hartford holding a caught fish, while Benjamin pretended he'd helped. Neighbors here knew him only as Ben with the sweet dog, unaware of Chicago trials and family betrayals. The hardware store owner Jim had become a friend over discussions of wood grain and proper joint construction. The librarian saved mystery novels she thought he'd enjoy. The vet praised how Sam had gained healthy weight and lost his shelter anxiety. Some bridges burn so others can be built, Benjamin told Sam as they settled for their evening ritual. Benjamin in his reading chair, Sam on his bed, nearby, close enough to touch. The cottage windows framed Lake Mendota as the sun began its descent, painting everything in shades of amber and possibility. At 70, Benjamin had learned that family wasn't just blood, but choice. That integrity wasn't about never falling, but about how you stood back up. That starting over was possible at any age, with any amount of damage, as long as you were willing to build something new from the salvage. Sam sighed contentedly, already dreaming whatever golden retrievers dream. Benjamin reached down to stroke the soft ears, feeling the steady heartbeat of a creature who asks only for kindness and gave trust in return. Outside, the lake reflected the last light of day, and somewhere in Chicago, the bridges Benjamin had built still stood still, carried people safely across dangerous spaces. Tomorrow, Emma and Marcus would call. Margaret would text photos of her garden. Thomas would share bad lawyer jokes. The hardware store would have that special wood glue in stock. Sam would want his walk. Life would continue different, but whole broken, but healing, forever changed, but finally and probably genuinely good. The sun touched the horizon, and Benjamin Mitchell, builder of bridges, both literal and metaphorical, watched another day end in peace he'd earned through surviving the unthinkable and choosing to continue with grace. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed a father's worst nightmare and ultimate redemption. Benjamin's story reminds us that family isn't defined by blood, but by choices. The choice to warn a stranger, the choice to maintain integrity, the choice to rebuild after unthinkable betrayal. At 70, he discovered that bridges aren't just structures we build to cross dangerous spaces. They're also the connections we forge with those who choose to stand by us when our world collapses. Sometimes the family we create is stronger than the one we're born into. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. And sometimes a golden retriever named Sam in an 8-year-old girl's drawing can heal wounds that seemed unhealable. Thank you for joining Benjamin's journey. If this story touched you, please subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what bridges are you building in your own life? Remember, it's never too late to start over, never too late to choose integrity, and never too late to find your true family. Until next time, keep building bridges that matter.